what actually attracted me to the company, which was the community and the culture. Because when you see a company that is very tech focused and innovation focused being supported and lifted up by such an amazing community of agents, you know that some amazing stuff is going to happen.
Real Brokerage just hit over 16,000 agents nationwide and is proving to be the fastest growing publicly traded brokerage in the country. Today I have a special friend and guest, Josh Frappier, who has been at Real for over 2 years now and was a massive part of bringing Real to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. He's here to talk about the good, the bad, and even the ugly when it comes to being at Real. And so if you're seriously considering joining Real Broker, this video is for you, and definitely subscribe for more content all about Real Broker. Let's go ahead and jump right into the interview. So Josh, thank you so much, man, for joining me today. So let's talk a little bit about how you actually got started in real estate.
I had a bit of a rough upbringing, and my childhood consisted of picking up pennies with my dad in Kmart parking lots and getting evicted over and over and over. So I had a real strong desire to find success and find a certain level of freedom and happiness in my life. And as a child, you don't really know which direction it's going to go, especially when you feel like you don't have tools and resources and opportunities. So I ended up joining the Marine Corps, and that brought me to California. And on one of my deployments, we were coming back and we stopped in Hawaii, which, it was amazing. Great place to stop coming back from Afghanistan. And I ran into a friend of mine who was a KW agent. And she, we went to high school together, and I still thank her tremendously for opening my eyes up to the real estate industry. But I remember sitting there with her on the beach, and, here I am in the Marine Corps making, I don't know, $15,000 a year, right? Maybe at that. Yeah. And she's all excited telling me about her first sale that she just had, and she made $25,000. So my eyes lit up, and I'm thinking, wow, this could be something that really would work well for me. And she really felt the same. So I joined KW after I got out of the Marine Corps, and that was in late 2016, and then I didn't really start working until mid 2017.
Awesome, man. Yeah. And so, starting at KW, I know we've talked a little bit. You've been to a couple different brokerages at this point. Talk about your journey and kind of how you got to Real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I said, when I joined, I went with KW, and I like KW as a company. I'm certainly not going to get into negative and cons with any other companies right now, but there were things that were lacking from what I was looking for, especially coming from the Marine Corps, where everything is community-based, right? We're all working together, and there's a certain level of camaraderie that you have in the military. And when I joined KW, maybe it was a independent franchisee situation that was going on when I joined there, but I was coming in really motivated and ready to grow, ready to learn, and everyone else kind of had their doors shut. So it didn't feel like the right environment for me. And I was then cherry picked from a Remax broker in my market. So I was with KW for a year, moved over to Remax. And so my second year with Remax was pretty good. That was I went from doing about 14 deals in that first half of the year in 2017 when I got started, to then 32 deals in my second year with Remax. And I'm a very techie person, and I love innovation. And I liked Remax for what it was, but it was a bit older from what I was looking for. And that's fine for many people, but I just love growth. I love technology. I love to see innovation happening before our eyes. And it ultimately wasn't the right move for me to stay at Remax. And especially with how expensive it was, because I am entrepreneurial at heart too. So looking at how expensive it was for me to operate there, it just wasn't the right move. So then I ended up moving to a local independent brokerage with a 20K cap, and there were more investor based. So I learned a lot about investing, and that was a good move for me too. But I was also, and this is fast forward getting to about COVID timeframe in 2020, I started really thinking about what else can I add to my business so that I can make more money and have more freedom? Because ultimately, that's what everybody wants on the planet, right? Is freedom.
Right.
And I saw EXP as an option and I put it off for years, right? I had all sorts of recruiters reaching out to me, and which we've all experienced to some degree with a lot of these different models. There's a lot of recruiters, and I shied it away for years, and then finally I let my guard down and I started to look into the virtual EXP model, and I finally said, you know what, this is a good model, and this is something that I could see myself thriving in. There were things that I didn't really like, but no brokerage is perfect, not even Real Broker, right? But
Sure.
ultimately, I took my time with that, and luckily, by the time I was ready to sign, I went and told a friend of mine who was my sponsor that I was joining EXP finally, and he was also at EXP, and he was also trying to recruit me back in the day to EXP. And he said, no, wait, stop. You need to see Real Broker, which is where I'm switching to this week. So I said, okay, I'll listen to you. And he showed me all the opportunities. He showed me the tech. He showed me the financial model. And for me, it was a no-brainer because I had already adopted and accepted the model of EXP. And I saw that as the future of the real estate industry. Not necessarily just EXP, but it's like anything else. When there's a disruptor or a paradigm shift in any industry, in any market, things are going to change from there on out, and it's never going to look the same. So I knew that with EXP paving that path, it was going to be someone else coming directly behind them that may have things a little more cleaned up, may have more opportunities, may have a better financial model. And, there's a lot of people that feel like they missed the boat with EXP. And I certainly did feel that in a sense, because a lot of the perks with these models is the revenue share, is the downline building. And with EXP, I think when I was entertaining it, they were at 75 or 80,000 people. So of course, I kind of missed the boat, right? So
Sure.
yeah. And when I joined Real, I was agent number 1600 or something. So,
Kind of
much
ground level.
different opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely more of a ground floor opportunity. It's really cool to hear your journey through the different
Mm-hmm.
brokerages. And I was just thinking about, the cons of the franchise model. Your experience at KW is totally different than mine. Like, I had a great training, great community, and you weren't even that far from me, maybe half an hour down the road. It's just a totally different model, because when you have franchises, they're just different. They're different organizations. And then the technology, learning, but your business also has just been like on a steady growth path. Even though you've been changing brokerages, you've been continuing to grow your business. Where are you at today? Like, what are you doing for volume, and where is your business at today? Hey, I wanted to let you know that if you are seriously considering joining Real Broker, first of all, my name's Cam Avery. I'm an agent here at Real. If you'd like to speak with me, you can actually set up a Zoom call directly. I've got a link right in the description below. I can hopefully answer any questions that you have, just to figure out if Real is going to be a good fit for your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With that, what you just said about my business on an uphill growth, I've definitely had an upward trajectory. And I think what people need to remember is, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but what Wayne Gretzky said, which is, you have to skate to where the puck is going. So I think one thing, again, to really pay attention to in the real estate industry right now is all of the innovations that are occurring. And really, COVID did it. COVID sparked the need for innovation in every industry, right? Not just
Right.
real estate.
Right.
So I think that's the big picture to pay attention to there, is to know that there's still more to come, right? There's still going to be a lot of changes that are going to occur in the real estate industry. So for me and my business, I have been growing quite a bit year after year. My third year was my biggest year transaction count. I believe we did 74 units that year. And that was pretty big. It was honestly, it was too big
Yeah.
for someone that was 2.5 years in the business, right? Because of course it went straight to my head, and I was like, yeah, I can do anything now. And I built a team too fast, right? Which is fine. I learned a lot. I had a lot of mistakes that were made, but I learned from them, and it was all good. But at that time, my average price point was, in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, it was probably high threes, maybe four, which to many other parts of the country, that's really good. For me, it's okay, right? Because our cost of living is a little on the higher end. So
Sure.
of course I did well, but I spent a lot of money putting my business together, and I was definitely growth focused. So I was willing to reinvest into the business. And then COVID hit in 2020. And during COVID, I also got a divorce and I also had a baby, right? So
Oh no.
I had a lot happen in 2020. And that's when I was like, maybe I should think about other ways to create freedom in my life, because I knew that with my life looking totally different and having the lovely responsibility of being a father, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. But I didn't want to work the way that I worked to get to where I was before I had my son. And I knew that I was going to have to do things a little differently. And I'm really happy that I did that for myself, because now my transaction count isn't as high. My team isn't as big as it was before, but I've been able to really focus on my price point and who I want to be working with, because I've had a lot of things clear off my plate from the things that are offered to us through the technology and the training really that we get at Real. I was able to fine tune who I wanted to be and who I wanted to serve in this industry. So now I'm happy with where my business is at. We're roughly doing about 25 million, and I'm hoping that that's going to go up for next year. So or this year rather, in
Yeah.
2024. So yeah, pretty happy with where we're at.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Love to hear it. Love to hear your story. Now that you've kind of been at Real for a few years, for someone thinking about maybe joining, maybe they're watching this now, what would you say are really the best parts of being at Real Broker?
Mm. I would say the best parts of being at Real Broker are, it's so hard to answer that because there's a lot of things. But I would say to start, it's what actually attracted me to the company, which was the community and the culture. Because when you see a company that is very tech focused and innovation focused being supported and lifted up by such an amazing community of agents, you know that some amazing stuff is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, from my short few years here, we've had more and more amazing agents join. It's not like we're just picking up any agent that sees an opportunity in the financial model. Of course, there's a lot of ways to make money at Real, which is the other side of the business, or the other side of being at Real that I truly love. But that financial model isn't acquiring low-hanging fruit necessarily, right? For lack of a better way to say that, we're still acquiring and attracting such amazing agents from all around the country. And that's only making us stronger. It's only making us better as individual agents, and as a collective, which is really saying a lot, as a company that has been growing very fast in just a few short years. So I would say the community, the culture, the technology, the innovation, and the financial model. Because obviously, like I said, with some shifts that were happening in my life in 2020, in 2021, the financial model has really given me a lot of opportunity to gain back control and freedom in my life that I don't know if I necessarily would have had quite yet. I think I would have had it eventually, but who wants to take longer to get to where they want to go? Right?
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. How has Real and the other, options for revenue kind of helped you really streamline your business, but also gain freedom in your life? I mean, you just went to Mexico for a week, or what was it,
I
a couple
did.
of days?
I did just go to Mexico for seven
Yeah.
days. So there's some perks.
I mean, that
But
only is clearly because you're at Real. I mean, clearly, if
uh,
you were at any other
obviously,
brokerage.
right? Yeah. So what I love is that I joined early, and of course, there's early adopter bonuses that are higher when you join, but you still get a substantial amount of stock as bonuses at Real even today. And we saw that with EXP. They had early adopter bonuses, and they start really high, and then as the company gets to, like, EXP's at is, what are they at, 85,000, 90,000 agents, right?
Right.
Which is phenomenal, right? I love seeing that for EXP because they paved the path, right, to a degree. They took
Sure.
innovation from KW that needed a facelift, right? It needed some rejuvenation, needed a different angle, and they've been able to continue to grow and give agents a lot for joining their company. And now you see Real has been able to make it even better, right? Because where everything just gets better and better when you're doing it from the heart. And Real has given me a lot in stock. So the stock, which I've never been savvy with investing in stocks. I've always been interested, and I started to build a portfolio with my financial advisor over the last couple of years since I got into real estate. But I've never had more than 50,000 shares in something, right? It's
Sure.
like, for somebody that, especially millennials, our generation and below, most of us don't have that guidance. Most of us don't have that opportunity. So for me to be able to get stock bonuses, contribute from my commission checks into the stock program, and then have them match me at 25%, right? That's allowed me to acquire quite a big portfolio for myself. So that's one angle that is phenomenal. And as our positive earnings reports come out, which actually yesterday, we just showed our positive earning for Q4 in 2023, and that caused our stock to jump just yesterday, right?
Right.
And that's awesome. That's great for anybody that is interested in investing in real stock. So there's that side of it. And then the other component that has really been beneficial for me, especially since I was the first agent in New Hampshire. I was one of the first in Massachusetts. I wasn't the first, but I was the first in at least the northern Massachusetts market to join Real. And then I ended up bringing one of the first agents in Maine, and he opened up operations in Portland, and he's brought on, I think, 30 people just himself, right? And I'm on my way to have at least 100 people underneath me for 2024. And just from what I've seen with the agents that are above me, like Tim Macy, who's an incredible guy, good friend of mine, who has, I don't even know, thousands, right?
Yeah.
Probably, and he deserves that because he saw the model so early on, and he shared this with people that he also thought were awesome and great, hardworking people that would
Right.
contribute to the company positively. So you look at how it started, right? And who were the first people that came on, like Tim Macy's and and Bob Tompkins and all these other great agents that came on. They brought on or invited or attracted other like-minded, great, kind people. And from there, you attract like attracts like, right? So what I'm saying is the opportunity I've had to continue to grow my revenue share has been incredible because we have such a great culture. And now, we're getting agents like you, right? And now that you're here in Kittery, Maine, Portsmouth market, that is going to bring on even more agents. They're going to say, I love Cam. If Cam went and if Josh is there and then so-and-so is there, that's the power of this model as far as attraction and revenue share. And that stuff gets me excited.
Yeah, it's it's literally a completely other stream of income that is not relevant to what the real estate market is doing. Ups and downs of this business. It's so nice to have that additional stream of income along with the stocks. And so how much do you have in stocks at this point, if you don't mind me asking?
I try not to obsess over it, excuse me, and check every day. But
Yeah, we still
I
do.
know that I have just over 50,000 shares.
Okay.
So I think we're at $3.40 something per
Yep.
share. So, you do the math. It's pretty good, for
Yeah.
only
Well,
being here
when I
for,
joined, it was like $1.38, and that was only a couple months ago. I mean, it's
right,
gone up
right.
significantly.
Yeah, and again, I do support EXP. I think that again, there's positives and negatives to other companies, but I love looking at what EXP was able to accomplish, and because that kind of set the path for what we can anticipate in some regard for where we're going as a company as well. And EXP's stock jumped to astronomical numbers at one point, and
Yeah.
obviously that was a crazy high. But you look at where they're at, and I know they're over $10 a share. I think they're.
Yeah, they
Don't
were
quote
around
me on this,
15
but
last time I checked.
okay, that was what I was going to
Which,
say.
yeah, if you look at that kind of trajectory and then you look at where you're at now, it's same with me. I mean, I started doing the stock thing right away because why not? I mean, it's
Hmm.
literally a no-brainer, I think,
Yeah.
because if the stock continues on the trajectory that EXP went on, you're only gonna keep
Hmm.
increasing that other stream of income.
Yeah.
Most brokerages are like, here's your cap, here's your split. You get to keep the rest after that minus whatever transaction fee, and that's where it ends. The
Hmm.
fact that there are these other models like Real, like EXP, like a couple other ones, and of course there's going to be more. But Real is just this great culture, and that's what sold me. And so I love
Hmm.
kind of what you're saying, but obviously like nothing's perfect. We're not
Right.
here to be like, oh my gosh, this company has no flaws at all.
Hmm.
You've been here for longer than I have. Like what would you say have been really kind of the drawbacks to being here at Real?
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely answer that as far as from a. We're basically a tech company, right? And where I joined, where we were still very new and not even open in New Hampshire or Maine, right? When I joined, there were some growing pains that came with that. And I think for somebody that doesn't have the patience for the things that or the growing pains that come along with that type of startup company, that could be painful, right? And I think we're past a lot of that now. We're certainly past a lot of those growing pains now. But again, we are a tech company, so we're going to be evolving our tech, and it's an amazing thing, I'll tell you that, because our tech is phenomenal. But things are going to change here and there, and for the type of person that's looking for everything is completely done and it's at its peak, we're not exactly there yet, right? But it doesn't mean that we're in a bad spot because our tech is already incredible and it's only going to get better. But it comes with, some, like I said, growing pains. So that's one thing. And then I think the other biggest complaint that I get, and I know you probably hear this too, especially being in New England, is that we don't have brick and mortar offices, right?
Yep.
Usually when I have a conversation, and this isn't a jab at anyone's age, but generally, um, generationally, our generation doesn't necessarily care about office space. But the agents that have a little bit more experience than I do, and culturally, they got into the industry and they operated from a sense of having a brick and mortar office, they feel as though that is lacking. And I can understand with that. I do, especially as somebody that I prefer an office. I love having my home office here and I use it, but I do like to have an office to go into, even though I only go in 10% of the time. And I think the average, and again, don't quote me on this, but I remember reading this somewhere. It said on average with most companies, 10% of the company goes in the office 10% of the time. Right. So
Right.
only a little bit. So I think the drawback is it's okay because the reality is that you get so much upside with the low cost of the operating of Real and in general. We're the lowest cost per transaction company that exists right now, right? And that's
Right.
because the Real, their financial model is very smart with how they want to spend their money and how they want to benefit the agents and streamline transactions so that the end user, the consumer, has a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could even speak to some of the cons, not to be like all pro Real, but at this point, having joined after New Hampshire and Maine are established, I would say that the onboarding process was really quite smooth. Other than just our states are older, and so everything takes like a week or 2 weeks that should take like literally a second to click over.
New
Like, now
Hampshire.
you're at Real. Going through that process, but we went through that at KW too when I switched over. And so, it was relatively smooth. Once the tech is up, my transaction coordinator got in there. She figured it out in like 10 seconds because she's amazing. And I've been able to, kind of get a grasp on everything. And then, we had, we were getting ready to list a property. And, Susan, my team member, she told their clients, hey, I just joined Real, and they looked into it and they started, essentially being like, oh my gosh, there's no office. Like, what are we going to do? And they started getting very nervous about that because, like you said, we're in New England. Everybody wants an office. And just that they started kind of, freaking out a little bit. And we were like, oh my gosh, are we going to lose the listing because we don't have an office? And so, they said, let's just talk it over and let's see. And they sat down, they were like, Susan, we want to work with you, and that kind of speaks to, at the end of the day, your clients work with you, not because of what brokerage you're at, even. Like, it's essentially almost irrelevant. If you've built your personal brand to the point that people know you, they're going to want to work with you regardless of what brokerage, where you hang your license, and whether or not you have a $1 million office in the middle of downtown Boston, or you work from your, essentially your space above your garage, which is where I'm at now. And I think that for agents, you're totally right. If you've been used to that office, it's a bit of a tough departure, but I have never been used to the office. The company that I started with had the nicest office I've ever been in, and I maybe used it one day every 3 months. And then, it just really makes sense when you look at where the industry's heading to not be tied to an office, but have the ability to rent one if you want.
Yeah.
So,
I think to add to that is that the beautiful thing about what we have here at Real is that our community is different, right? And I can say this because I've worked at KW, I've worked at Remax, I've worked at a local independent Boston-based company, and the culture here is truly different. It's remarkable in terms of how we're able to come together as a collective. And that isn't just across the board nationally, and it doesn't affect the more localized regions like where we're at in southern Maine to Seacoast, New Hampshire, in northern Mass, right?
right.
We definitely experience that here because we have community. And I think what people need to understand is that even though we don't have office space, as we're growing, we're getting more and more connected and we're collaborating more and more. And it gives us an opportunity to stay connected with each other, have events together, maybe even have events where we get together and we have like pop-up work sessions. There's so many opportunities to actually stay connected. And I think that's what most people look for with an office. It's not so that they can go work a little bit, because I think most people will agree that their most productive hours are probably in their own home office where it's quiet and they're going to bang out their phone calls and not have to deal with traffic, or spend time rather, communicating with other agents in the office, catching up, right? And
Right.
then getting distracted, right? It's more of the community sense. It's more
Right.
of the having friendship and connections. And we have that. We have that sevenfold. It's just virtual based, and then we transition it to more offline as we grow. And we're definitely experiencing that, at least in our market. And my friends that are in the Texas markets right now, they're much bigger in the Texas cities like San Antonio and Houston and Austin and Dallas. And if you look at those cities, man, those agents get together all the time and they're filling rooms, right? And they're so connected,
Yeah.
right? And that's something you don't see at a lot of the other brokerages because they stay so isolated within their own offices, but then within their own offices they don't really go. Like I
Yeah.
said, 10% only go 10% of the time,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I
It's
may have
almost
made
like,
up that number, but
I love it. 10 and 10.
yeah.
It's like when you
Yeah.
don't have an office, when you actually get together, it means that you actually wanted to. You weren't
Hmm.
going in out of obligation.
That's such a great way to put it. Yeah.
And so you end up creating something that could be potentially even more powerful. We'll get there in New England.
Hmm.
We just gotta,
We'll get there quick.
we'll
That's
get
the
there.
reality, is that
Yep.
we're going to get there quicker than we think, because a lot of other agents that haven't accepted that model as the new norm kind of treat me and some other agents, at Real as outsiders, as different folk in the industry. But the reality is that we're only growing. And again, I'm going to use EXP as an example. Nobody says EXP, those guys with no offices, those guys that do everything online, that's not a thing anymore. The time has gone by. The brokerage has grown. They're almost as big as KW, right?
Right.
So here we are, and we're small and very mighty, but it's going to happen where we grow large enough to where people are not going to have those judgments and comments anymore. So that's currently what I experience that is probably the hardest. And a lot of the agents in my market, they still think that I'm my own broker, and they're like, "Oh, good for you! You started your own brokerage," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure," right? And some of them I let them think it, and the others I say, "No, no, no, we're actually a virtual based company that spawned from, KW to EXP, and now our Real is a byproduct of the evolution of tech and brokerage model in our industry." And, they look at me like, huh, okay, so do you have an office? Right? That's usually how it goes. That's probably
Yeah.
the hardest part. And that's
Yeah.
not even
Welcome
that
to
bad.
New England.
So,
We are literally
yeah,
dinosaurs over here.
I know.
Well,
Yeah.
on that note, Josh, thank you so much for joining me today, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your insight. Definitely going to have you on again.
Yeah.
And, if you're interested in understanding all about Real Brokerage, definitely watch this video here where we explain Real Broker, the entire model for 2024.